awesome and I review garbage. No, I'm just fucking with you. Welcome back to Kris Vents. I'm your host, back here once again with Dom, the disembodied Discord voice. And today, we are talking about something I found through Possum Reviews. A little indie horror film by the name of The Last Light, an Irish ghost story. And as I just said to you before we started recording this is easily the worst of the bunch of this series so far, which is a hell of an accomplishment when you consider the insurrection was 90 minutes of propaganda and Cuck was
a guy masturbating.
Yeah, excessive masturbation scenes. But at least in Cuck, shit was happening. This one, not so much. So this movie, and when I say independent, I mean this movie was shot on a budget of around 105 euros, which amounts to about $127 in 2021. Yes, I did calculate it. So this movie comes from writer, producer, editor, cinematographer, and director and fluffer George Clark. Yeah, this guy, regular Rene Perez, Robert Rodriguez, jack of all trades, master of none right here. And it's about a guy named Rob Walker. No, I'm not joking. He's a handyman, and he's been hired to board up this abandoned mansion, care home, asylum. I don't know. If it's ever said at any point throughout the movie, I couldn't tell because this is one of those movies where the dialogue wasn't recorded with separate audio gear. It was they just said, let's just use the built-in microphone on the camera and that'll work. Fuck it. Which should have been a red flag right away that this was going to be amateur hour. Nothing screams amateur harder than shitty audio in your movie.
Unlike most of the others, I had no, including especially the last two. Obviously, I have no clue what this film's like. So I'm gonna need you to give me your info dump before I can have any sort of comment.
Well, I wish there was a whole lot more info to dump. He goes to the abandoned mansion to start boarding it up, and it's haunted because there are ghosts fucking with him. And I should mention, it takes a while for it to get to that point, because this is one of those movies where they had an idea for a 10-15 minute short, and they just stretched it out to 83 minutes. And no, I'm not joking. It is padding the movie. And to give you an example, the movie opens on shots of the Irish countryside, and Rob is driving to the mansion. It's not as arbitrarily stretched out as Birdemic, but it's fucking close. Then when he actually gets to the mansion, there's an unnecessary amount of time devoted to showing him getting out of his car, unlocking the front gates, driving all the way up to the house, getting out of his car again, walking all the way back to the fucking gate, locking it, going back to his car, gearing up, walking all the fuck way around the house, and going inside. All of which is presented in real time.
You have to think of this as a trade-off. They're trading in pacing for realism.
Yeah, that is what it is. It's one of these movies that seems to just mistakes the the realism for building atmosphere was like, but that's so real. That's just what happens. It does take a long time to. It's like, yeah, but that's the boring shit. Movies are not supposed to be comprised of boring shit. Movies are supposed to, move, even if it's a slow paced movie. The Shining is a very slow paced movie, but it still fucking moves. And then that's not even getting into the only reason this movie is 82 minutes long is because between him being attacked by ghosts throughout the movie, there are just long stretches of him with a flashlight or with a lighter or with matches just fumble fucking about in the dark, just walking around this place, whether it's to get started or whether it's because he hears noises and he goes to investigate like all white people in horror movies do instead of just getting the fuck out of there, or he's being chased by a ghost that he's not convinced is a ghost, because this character, for whatever baffling reason, throughout the entire fucking movie, even though he clearly is finding, even though he can clearly tell, anybody with a brain can tell that he's being attacked by paranormal spirits, poltergeists, or whatever, he never stops telling himself that it's just kids fucking with him. This is one of those movies where the only reason the story goes the way it does is because the character is so bafflingly stupid that it's a wonder he doesn't break his neck trying to tie his shoes in the morning.
So the character's an idiot, like with most horror films. It's boring. Uh, and that's the worst thing you can say because if it's just him screwing around with a flashlight, doing menial tasks, that's all you can't really get into why it's just it's not like an Uwe Boll movie. It's just nothing happens.
No, at least Uwe Boll's movies are terrible, but at least shit happens in them. Well, I don't know if Rampage 2 and 3 would count because three-quarters of those movies just some retard ranting in front of a webcam. Wait a minute.
I this is disappointing because I had previously associated the Walker surname with high quality cinematography.
The
So this
framing
is
is. Sorry, what?
so this is a surprise and shock.
Yeah, dude, seriously, like the only thing that works in this movie is the framing because there's a lot of. I'm guessing George Clark is a huge Resident Evil fan, a huge Alone in the Dark fan, because there's a lot of static camera shots that are framed like it looks like something that belongs in one of the first Alone in the Dark games or one of the early Resident Evil games. But a lot of those shots are just it's too dark to see. They're just using natural light off of the dude's flashlight or whatever, and they don't really do anything with the shot. It's just there because it's a nice frame. It's a wasted shot. It's like it doesn't matter how good your framing is if you're not going to do anything with it. Why fucking bother? It's one of those movies that confuses emptiness for atmosphere, and it's like no, nothing happening is not atmospheric. My favorite, one of my favorite horror movies of all time is John Carpenter's Halloween. That is a very atmospheric movie, but shit still happens in it.
You think this might have been just hearing about this and what happens? You think this might have been some sort of how-to video where he's explaining how to renovate an old house, and then he was attacked by ghosts for real, like some sort of real life Blair Witch Project?
If this movie had been found footage like that, maybe there might have been something interesting. I don't know. Found footage is a gimmick that I really, really do not care for at all. Which this movie almost almost goes found footage because for his flashlight has a built-in camera, which I didn't know was a thing until I saw Possum Review's video of this. But yeah, it's a real thing that divers used. This movie could have almost gone in a found footage direction like that, but the movie doesn't commit to the limitations of that gimmick. It's just it keeps jumping back and forth between, well, until he loses the flashlight and then
Does he
has to dick around with a lighter.
does he die in the end?
Yes.
Do we see a bloody corpse, or is it just implied?
He lights a match, there's a bunch of ghosts staring him down, and then they move on him, and then it just cuts to black and you hear a woman scream and then credits.
What do the ghosts look like?
They
Are they
just look like people with really cheap makeup on. Like Party City makeup. I don't know if they have party cities in Ireland, but if they do,
Is
I
there
don't know.
anything good you can say about the film?
I mean, apart from the occasionally decent filming, I mean, and the music doesn't work either because this is one of those movies where, for whatever reason, they decided to use public domain Kevin MacLeod music for their soundtrack. Like the most basic stock, the shit you hear in every YouTube video in the history of fucking ever is it is what passes for this film's score. They even use that, I don't know what it's called. It's like a stock audio effect you can find on like iMovie, and it's like some kind of weird like horror building stinger that is used in a shitload of YouTube videos for comedic effect. They use it unironically here. This movie would have been better off without a score. Like, even if you complain about there being no music, you know what? I'd rather have no music than generic music.
So there's nothing redeemable about the film.
None that I can think.
So then that means don't watch it. So.
Absolutely not. Like, I watched this for free on Tubi, and I still feel ripped off because that was 82 minutes, 83 minutes, plus however long it takes to get through the ads that of my life that I could have spent watching something actually fucking good, or something that I haven't seen before that actually looked kind of good. So yeah, don't just avoid it.
Maybe you can use it the way Carrie Fisher used to use the Star Wars Holiday Special. You turn it on when you want guests to leave.
Oh, yeah, that would be that would certainly do it. You got anything to add? Because I pretty much this movie was such a nothing movie.
This is why I generally don't watch indie films.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, you can find some good indie films. It's just you gotta wade through an endless ocean of shit to find that one diamond in the rough. Unfortunately, so I guess that's gonna do it for this episode of Kris Vents. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about next week, but I can promise it'll be something other than this. So we'll see you guys next time.